Hare Krishna. So, uh, until this point of time, until the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna suggests Arjuna that know how, like now when Arjuna prepared to give up the battle and wanted to go to forest, Krishna suggests to Arjuna that no, you should not give up your activity, I mean your duty. And first of all, he says that no, doing activity is more beneficial than not doing activity. And then he gives how to perform the action. So, and this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it deals with the performance of karma, the activity. So basically, it is said that no, like every living entity is entitled to the results of its own actions. Means whatever the activity, either good or bad, that we do in this world, will have its own reactions. Means it will give the reactions, and that reactions, like sinful or pious activities, that will give good or bad reactions. To actually go through that reactions, we have to come to this world again and again. So now here in this section, he says, but how can you perform activity but not get bound? Means like you perform actions, but you are not bound by the action. So, like when it says, like liberation or bondage does not depend on, is not determined by one's activity, but by one's consciousness. That is the like a main point. And renunciation is not giving up. I'm just going through the overview of the presentation. Renunciation is not giving up the action, but attachment to the results of the action. That's what that is discussed until this point of time. Means like we have to perform our duty, but we should not be attached to the results. Like when we are attached to the results, we become either joyful or not depressed based on whether it is the results is expecting our like meeting our expectations or not. Okay, but Arjuna says, no, I will, instead of fighting this war, I will just give up and go to the forest and engage in meditation, something like that. But it says, Krishna says, without performing prescribed duties, and like every living entity has certain desires, and without fulfilling that desires, if we give up the activity prematurely, it will lead to sinful reaction, because it will not lead to the perfection of spiritual life, but it again leads to, again, like even though we may go to the forest, but our constant meditation is how to how can I satisfy my desires, how can I enjoy it, like that, then that will lead to coming back again and again. So basically it is said that karma works in cycle. We perform action, due to action, then some samskaras will be develop in our mind. So these impressions, like if you have a good experience, it will give good impression. If you have bad experience, it will give bad impression, bad impression. And the nature of our mind is always seeking pleasure in our actions. And that impressions are there in the mind, and then that will lead to the tendency. What is the tendency? Given the situation, how do we respond to the situation? Because based on our experience, if you are nicely taught manners and nicely cultivated how to behave properly, how to respect every living entity, then the way we respond to the different situations in our life differs. So due to this tendency, the thought pattern means like, for example, I gave you in the last sessions, like, if a person is needy for money, and if he get accustomed to stealing or robbery, something like that, then the next time when he needs the money, the same tendencies will develop. So that is called thought pattern, the vritti. And that vritti will provoke, vritti will actually makes the person to do the same activity again and again. So like that's why a person performing activity is tend to repeat that again and again. That's why if you see person who has failed, uh, unless he acts very differently, it is tend to fail again and again. It can be either in spiritual thing, spiritual life, or in material life, or anywhere. Means like it doesn't mean that a failure is like he can learn and he can go. That's a different thing. So it's a cycle of karma, means that the tendency is there because of tendency, that impression. So and Krishna here, he actually, first of all, he he describes the premature renunciation. So first, what is premature renunciation? To purify the hearts of the materialistic person, prescribed duties are laid down. Means like a jiva, a soul takes birth in this material world. It is embedded right from its birth. It is embedded with certain desires for like controllership, sense enjoyment, or everything. And if one accepts this, the renounced order of life without fulfilling those desires, or without managing them, without, we don't know how to without properly addressing them, then it will leads to the impure the renunciation with impure heart reverts the material action. Such person cannot remain inactive. What is the renounced order? Renounced order means he is not associated with either good or bad. He will remain inactive, means he doesn't take part actively in any kind of passionate or activities. He will mainly focus on Brahman. If for a person who is actually striving to go to merge into the impersonal, means like a but the activity, as I said, activity is the one, if one performs activity either good or bad, it is going to bring him back again to reap the results. So that's why Krishna says, nahi kaschid kshanamapi jatu tishyati akarma karyate hi avishah karma sarva prakriti jatir gunai. No one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of nature. Means, if, for example, if you take the example of Arjuna here, if he renounces the war and goes to the forest, if some provoking situation comes, he can't restrain himself. He'll start fighting. For example, if you see, he goes to please Lord Shiva, he goes to forest and to get Pashupatashram, and he starts meditating on Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva comes in the form of a hunter and provokes him, like he picks up a fight with Arjun. Like, when Arjuna was meditating, he senses one wild boar chasing towards him. That was actually the arrangement of Lord Shiva only. And when the wild boar is coming towards him, he immediately takes his arrow and shoots at that boar. And immediately before Arjuna's arrow comes and pierces that boar, another arrow comes from nowhere and he kills the boar. So that boar is killed by two arrows, like one from Arjuna and one from the one hunter. So then hunter comes and says, no, okay, see, I have already killed, I have already shooted this boar with my arrow. You just leave this animal to me and go away. Means here Arjuna is not interested in that animal. He is interested in the title. Who killed that? So that's how he picked up the fight with that hunter. And that hunter challenges Arjuna. Okay, if you want to take the credit of killing this boar, you fight and win me. That's how a fight starts between Arjuna and that hunter. And after that, the fight goes on very well. And at the end, like that hunter defeats Arjuna. And Arjuna, when he is defeated, he comes to realization that he cannot be no other than Lord Shiva. Then Lord Shiva reveals his original form and gives him the benediction which he wanted. He gives Pashupastra to Arjuna. Means, see, Arjuna went to do tapasya. He went to please Lord Shiva. You don't have to care for any hunter or anything else. You just have to renounce the results and then just engage in his devotional whatever tapasya is doing. But when a provoking situation comes, he was not able to restrain himself. So that's why Krishna says no one can refrain from doing something. Means everybody has to do something or other. Even if it takes, even taking rest is also considered as doing something, because you are resting. That is in mode of ignorance, that he said. Okay. Or mode of passion, you want to achieve something, you want to do something. Or mode of goodness, you want to do some constructive activity. So always we are in modes of nature. As soon as we are in this world, our karma starts, and it will goes on until the point we leave this body. So, and this karma can be classified into three types. Okay. One is called Sanchit karma. Sanchit karma is a total karma that is accumulated by the jiva over a previous lifetimes. Like every living entity is going through many lifetimes. So it is said that not all the reactions of all the karma can be experienced in one lifetime, because as per the living entity, the rule of karma, if a living entity, if a jiva does something good, he has to reap the results of it. Good activity means previously in his previous lifetime or in this lifetime, he might have done some good activity, and he might he has to reap the benefits of being happy, comfortable, and getting all sense enjoyment and enjoying all the sense enjoyment that he is getting. He can get all those things. So until that period is finished, he will not be subjected to any bad reactions. Means like even if there is some sinful reactions on his account, this good karma will prevent that until that point of time. Then when it's good, the pious credits are ends, then the sinful reaction starts. That's why if you see some people who are doing very well, until certain point of time they are very well off and very well in all aspects they're well doing well, and suddenly after a certain period of time everything in their life goes wrong. Why? Because that is the point. Until that point of time their good credits, the pious credits are there. After the pious credits ends, immediately the bad karma takes charge. So, and this all the karma that we did in this lifetime, previous millions and trillions of lifetimes, everything is stored in Sanchit karma. And from the Sanchit karma, it's like a queue, like one good karma, one bad karma, results, how it comes. So it keeps on coming, and that leads to prarabdha karma. Means prarabdha karma means the karma that is ready to give the results. So, and then that comes to then prarabdha karma, then agami karma. Agami karma is karma created in this lifetime. Some agami karma fructifies and some in this life, and while balance joins in the sanchit karma. Means like some portion of the karma will fructify and will give either good or bad reactions in this lifetime, and some portion will go into the deposit, like a depository, or what do you call that, storehouse of karma. So this is a cycle of karma. Means like how we perform. Sanchit karma, like it will lead to past deeds. Now it will create vasanas, and then how we react to that karma, how we react to the experiences in this world, that will lead to the vasanas, the tendencies, and the way we respond to that karma will lead to new karmas again. So the new karmas we can do in these four ways. Nishiddha karma means prohibited activities, sinful activities, and means otherwise good activity, or kama karma, or sense gratificatory activity, or we can do nishkama karma yoga, means acting without any desire for sense gratification, act without any results. Means without kama, nishkama karma yoga. So when one acts on the level of nishkama karma yoga, means without any attachment to the results, then it will lead to liberation, the moksha. So otherwise, then the person, this karma will keeps in this cycle again and again. So the best and easiest way of acting on the level of nishkama karma yoga is to do all our activities as a service to Krishna. That will come in the next sections. So, and for a person who is engaged very prominently in the karmic activities, it is said that there are different worshippers, demigod worshippers. Maybe worshipping Chandra, Surya, Durga, all those demigods. That kind of person, these results are recommended. Or a person who is actually in the still on the karma yoga platform, means doing good or bad. So for them, it is said that everything has to be done as a work for Vishnu and avoid bondage. Until one does work as a sacrifice to Vishnu, then he will be entitled to his karma. That's why Bhagavad Gita says, Yajnartat karma no nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So Yajnartat karma no nyatra means Yajnartat karma. Karma should be performed for the sake of yajna only. Anyatra means otherwise, lokoyam karma bandhana. It will lead to the bondage of karma, bondage of the actions and reactions of our life. So, but whoever does tadartam karma kaunte, whoever does activity for the sake of yajna, they can attain the liberation, mukta sangha samachara. So that's why Krishna says, no, you can perform whatever activity you are performing, you can perform, but as a sacrifice to Vishnu. So means what does this karma yoga process deals? No, the karma yoga process deals with, we should do activity and we should do proper action with proper attitude. Proper action means performing only sattvic and rajasic karmas. And when we do rajasic karmas or sattvic karmas, we have to do proper attitude as a service to Krishna. Then only our karma will not bind us. Otherwise, our karma will be a great bondage to us. So, performing the work, okay, results of the good work, results of the good work will lead to the heavenly planets, and results of the bad work will lead to the hellish planets where we suffered. And Krishna conscious activity will lead to liberation or going back to Godhead. So we all have to do something or other. It is the duty. Krishna says, even in order to maintain your body, you have to work. So work cannot be avoided as long as we are in this material world. So the best thing is work as a service to Krishna. Work, whatever you are doing, you do it as a service, as an offering to Krishna, as a sacrifice to Vishnu. Then you will be freed from the reactions of karma. So there was a nice story, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, like in the sages, the sages in there are 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. At the end of Dwapara Yuga and or in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the sages in Naimisharanya, they actually realize that Kali Yuga is going to start, and they actually realizes how much suffering they are going to get in future due to the effects of Kali. So they thought of performing a sacrifice to counteract the bad effects of the Kali Yuga. So that is called those are sages of Naimisharanya. In the Naimisharanya it is happening, but they are not 100% confident, because these yajnic results, they may give when any mishap is there, any mistake happens when performing yajna, they will not give proper result. Like if you see in the past times, like in Rutrasura past time, Rutrasura, like Rutrasura, the sage who actually did yagya to give birth to Rutrasura, he actually he utters one syllable too longer. Indra Shatru, instead of saying Indra Shatru, he says Indra Shatru, means like somebody who will kill Indra. That is he wants to get some person who will kill the Indra. But because he uttered the one syllable more longer, little longer, then a person who will be killed by Indra will be born. So that's these yajnas are so scientific, no? Like so result oriented. No? It is said that in when these yajnas are properly performed, the demigods personally used to come and take the offerings. And also the animals that are killed in the yajna, they immediately in front of everybody's eyes, it will lead to the human form. It will take the human birth again. So that's why in the previous ages, these yajnas are very much recommended, even though the sacrifices are there, means animal sacrifices are there. But in this age of Kali, these animal sacrifices are prohibited because there are no qualified ritviks who can perform these yajnas. So the sages of Naimisharanya were doubtful. No, okay, we are doing this 1,000-year sacrifice, but we are not sure if it is going to give results or not. So what they do, okay, instead of that, we can actually perform some Harikatha. That's how they request Suta Goswami to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. And when they start reciting Srimad Bhagavatam and says they themselves address the situation, they said, okay, we are not sure if that our sacrifice is going to give results or not, but Harikatha will already started acting on us. Our minds become, our hearts become very pacified, and we are experiencing great pleasure. Okay, like that. Then how to work for Vishnu or Krishna? For that, we need to have guidance of spiritual master. So then when we work for Krishna, then results will not be born. Results will not born. Result of working in the service of Krishna is will not be bound by the work and will go back to Godhead. And here in this section, right, we are mentioning perform sacrifice for the pleasure of Vishnu, but it doesn't mean that sacrifice means putting something in the fire. Means otherwise there are many things burning all over the world. So if you see any sacrifice, any image of the sacrifice, we see like 4 or 5 brahmanas sitting around the fire or putting something into the fire. It is not that is not sacrifice. A sacrifice has to be performed according to the rules and regulations of the Vedas. Then only it is a bona fide sacrifice. Then only it will give the result. So and what kind of sacrifices? No, how it says like no, when Lord Vishnu created this material world, he gave he placed the souls in this material world from the spiritual world who wants to enjoy independent of Krishna. And when he kept in the souls for their enjoyment, okay, you want to enjoy independent of me, okay, go here and enjoy in this material world, but don't stay there for long, because it is like no, it is dukkhalamacham. It is a painful situation. It is not where you have to be by the nature of by the nature. Soul is not supposed to stay in this material world for long. That's why he gave the Vedas, the process of purification. They get purified, and and Vedas and sacrifices, and the different sacrifices are prescribed in the Vedas. Why these sacrifices are prescribed? Because the jiva, the living entities by nature have certain tendencies for sense gratification. So okay, then okay, Krishna allowed it. Okay, you want to enjoy, you want to do sense gratification, you can do, but follow these Vedic rules and regulations and in a bona fide way. So it is like, it is said, right, like when you accept the something which with the permission of a owner, then it is not a robbery. Otherwise, it is a robbery. So Krishna instructed these Vedas and sacrifices, and sacrifices are performed for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu, and that will be acknowledged by the demigods. That will nourish the demigods, and demigods in turn will offer it to Lord Vishnu, and demigods will give all the benefits that are required by the human beings in this material world. So there are different kinds of sacrifices, no? Like in the Krita Yuga and Satya Yuga, there is this will come in the later section again. And then Krishna says, demigods being pleased by the sacrifices will also please you by giving material things, and by thus cooperation between men and demigods will prosperity will refrain for all. Okay, and in charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of yajna will supply the necessities to you, but he who enjoys the gifts of the gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Means, first of all, you are getting air, water, land, everything that you are getting from demigods. That whatever you are getting from demigods, first you have to offer it to demigods in sacrifice. So demigods don't take the offering just like that. They have to be offered in a right procedure. Why? Because if you want to send an email, there is a procedure, right? You want to create a login account, and then you have to have your own account, compose the email, and then send it. Then only the email will go. Or do anything in this material world, there is a certain procedure. So in the same way, there is a certain procedure how we offer it to demigods. Of course, if you are not properly trained in Vedic rituals, you will not be able to know these procedures, how it will work. That's why if you see the way we offer, the way we do arti and offerings, the bhog offering, everything that are prescribed in the Pancharatra Vedi, means the way that we do the process of devotional service. So we have to follow the scriptures, then only the results will be certain. So the demigods accept the offerings only through the sacrifice. And what is the result? So demigods, they will give all this, when yajna is performed, the demigods will be pleased, and they will give light, air, and water. And performance of yajna will lead to other benefits also. It will purify the eatables, and eatables are purified. Food is sanctified, and by taking sanctified food, one's existence is purified. And purification of one's existence, finer tissues of the memory becomes developed in the brain, and due to which one can remember how to perform the devotional service, how to act proper way. See, like why this memory is given, because we keep forgetting. Like, see, the only way that we can get out of this mental existence is by constantly remembering how painful it is mental existence is. But the problem here is, like, we actually forget everything. How much distress we have gone through, how much suffering we are. As soon as some pleasurable situation comes, we forget everything, whatever happened in our life, and then think that, oh, life is very beautiful here. So the memory is sanctified, means right memory, means like we know that, okay, this painful and distressful situations and happy situations comes and goes. So this is not the place that I'm supposed to be here. So that's why then only, like, what is the difference between an animal and a human being? Animal goes by instincts. Like but human beings remembers what is going to do good and what is going to do bad, then act with intelligence. But animals don't have that intelligence. So then why should we perform this yajnas? Because we have already taken a lot from the environment, parents, society, etc. We are under a huge debt already. nature will not let us go free. So we only have two options: either we offer willingly or taken by force. Because if you see our lives also, at the end of life, everything is going to go away from us. But we have to learn to offer in a proper way to Krishna back, so that we will be relieved from this debt, and will be, like that's Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Swalpam pesa dharma se trato mahato bhat. Even if you do little bit in a right manner, then it will lead to the ultimate perfection. So it is said in the scriptures, every living entity in this material world has five debts. Means Devaruna means like a debt to the demigods, and Bhutaruna debt to the plants and animals, Pitruna debt to the parents and ancestors, and Manusharuna debt to other human beings, and Rishiruna debt to the sages. Why Devaruna? Because your body is maintained by Devas. Like you need water, air, you need earth, you need sun, heat and light, everything. That is given by the Devas. They are demigods, are the in charge for different elements of the nature. If somebody may say, why we are saying this, all the demigods are elements? Because if you see, every element of the nature is dead. Like earth is dead. Earth is a dead matter. Earth is not. Earth doesn't have consciousness. Water doesn't have consciousness. Air doesn't have consciousness. But how come everything is happening in a harmony and producing and supporting life? Because there is an intelligent brain controlling that factors. So, and Bhutarana, because we actually depend on other living entities also for our survival, the plants and animals. So one should reciprocate to them also. One should be willing to give back to them also, like feeding the animals and planting more trees and watering trees or something like that. That is also there. And Pitrurna means because our body is like our ancestors gave us this body. That's why it is called. We are indebted to parents and ancestors. And also Manusharana, because when we are living in this world, we take a lot of help from different personalities, because we cannot live alone. Because especially the human beings, in the society, they cannot live alone. They are dependent on different living persons. That's why the dharmas, Atithi dharma, means some guest come to your home, you have to feed him nicely, and you have to be well behaved with other living entities, like other human beings. That's why that way we pay off this debt of Manusharana. And Rishiruna, why Rishiruna? Because if you take various scriptures and various spiritual practices, that they are like Rishis means like acharyas, gurus. We are indebted to them because of their knowledge and their knowledge that are how to work and how to perform activity in this world. So what scripture says how we can pay back to them is by worshipping the devatas through fire sacrifice. The devarunas can be paid off, and by worship of forefathers, by offering the pinda to the forefathers, the pitruna can be paid off. And bhutrana, worship of other beings, means worship means like feeding the other animals. And manusharana can be by helping the needy. And the by reading the scriptures and preaching them, we actually pay back the other one. What is the other one? Rishirana. So these are the 5 ways. These are called Pancha Mahayajnas. Means everybody who is living in a civilized society, they should regularly perform these Pancha Mahayajnas. So, and anything that you eat should should come as an offering, like after performance of yajna. See why yajnas are performed, why yajnas will counteract many of the sinful actions. Means yajnas, in performance of yajna, we are actually, for a Brahman is required for the sake of yajna. And after performance of yajna, then he will be, dakshina will be given to a Brahmana. And then yajna system is the food offered in the yajna will be distributed among different living entities. That's how it will support all the living entities, and also it will please Lord, it will please different demigods, and it will please Lord Vishnu also. So those devotees who eat the food remnants of sacrifice offered to Vishnu are released from all kinds of sins. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment barely eat only sin. Means if you don't offer it, like that's why we, every food stuff that we eat, we offer to Krishna, the deities. That's how we say that no, we take it as a remnants of Krishna. That's how we will be freed from the sins of the sin. Otherwise, if you don't offer it to Krishna, then it will be eating sin. So then how it can be, like what does Shastra say about this sanctification of food? Like if when yajna is performed, when offering is performed to Krishna, ahara shuddhi, sattva shuddhi, means ahara shuddhau sattva siddhi, sattva shuddho dhruva smriti, smritir lambe sarva granthinam vipramoksha, means by performance of yajna, one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified food, one's very existence becomes sanctified, purified. And purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory becomes sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, one can think of path of liberation. Means until you eat the food stuff that are offered in the yajna, this tendency or that this motivation to to get out of this material existence will not take place. Otherwise, we will be conditioned. If you that's why, like one should perform this Panchamaha yajnas, so that giving back to worshipping demigods, offering to devatas, offering to forefathers, offering to the needy animals, offering to the needy human beings. So this, through this Panchamaha yajnas, of whatever we possess will get sanctified, and when we eat that, we get higher intelligence. Then Krishna says how this cycle of sacrifice, when you are eating food, how this food can be sanctified. How this annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhava yajnat bhavanti parjanyo yajna karma samudbhava, means this is a cycle of sacrifice, like how the anna is related to sacrifice. Means by annad bhavanti bhutani, the living entity subside on the food, and parjanyat anasama, this food is coming from the rain, and this rain is coming because of the sacrifices we perform, and this sacrifice is only possible due to the karma in the different varnas and ashtamas. So that's why everything is linked nicely. Our karmas will, through our karma we have to perform sacrifice, and through sacrifice comes rains, through rains comes the food stuff, and through food stuff we offer to Krishna, it will become prasadam. But and also this regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas, and how we perform this activity, like enter this activity, these regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, all pervading personality, consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. Means when we perform sacrifice, when we go, because it is the instruction to act, it is directly coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we act according in this cycle of sacrifice, we will be satisfying Vishnu or Krishna. That's how everybody is satisfied. Vishnu is satisfied, demigods is satisfied, and everybody, other living entities, they are also satisfied when we follow the cycle of this sacrifice. But if you don't follow the cycle of sacrifice, but only acts on the sense gratification, just like animals, they act on instincts, right? Evam pravrittim chakram non. I will just read the translation. A human being who does not follow the cycle of sacrifice established by the Vedas certainly leads a futile life full of sin, living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Means who doesn't follow the cycle of sacrifice? Means like here, if you see how a person is pulled by different senses, these senses have the tendency to pull us to perform different activities. But if you don't perform this activity according to the sacrifice, according to the Vedic injunctions, according to the rules and regulations set forth by the spiritual master or the authority, spiritual authority, then you will be human who you'll act on the instincts of senses, then it will lead to karma bandhana. Just like here, see that person who is eating without any consideration, next it will lead to the next life to become a pig. Somebody who is molesting, he will become a dog, like that. So a human being who does not follow the cycle of sacrifice established in the Vedas certainly leads to the futile life. So this process of sacrifice is established for the sake of gradual elevation. Means if you don't act on the instinct of sense gratification, then if you act according to the Vedic sacrifices, over a period of time, you will develop, okay, that is karma kandic activity, karma kanda, that is the level of karma kanda. Then you stay in the level of karma kanda for some time and then come to the level of karma yoga, means performing everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Initially, sacrifice when you do, you are doing for your sake, but you are using the procedure that is prescribed by the sacrifice. But when you keep doing that, then you will develop renunciation. Oh, there is not much pleasure in that. Then you will come to the level of karma yoga, and finally karma yoga to jnana yoga, then jnana yoga to then come to bhakti yoga process. So what is sacrifice? Sacrifice is an act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. So, and when we perform sacrifice, like if you see, like it is said, even in general, that unless one is actively engaged without any motivation for the service of others, you will not have inner fulfillment. Like one of the speaker that I saw recently, he said, unless one works without any motivation without any restrictions for the well-being of others, he will not have satisfaction. He don't have, money doesn't give happiness, name, fame, any attribute, none of the attributes give happiness, real fulfillment, unless ones are without any reservation, without any expectations, means without selfish interest. So when we perform sacrifice, because we are doing the right thing, we are following the scriptures, we actually feel the inner fulfillment, and it will lead to the ultimate liberation as per the scriptures, and satisfy the living. Not only it helps us, it also satisfies others also. And sacrifices are required even in this world. Like sacrifice means not only the Vedic sacrifice, but there are different sacrifices, right? That whatever we out of self-interest, we keep our self-interest aside, and then we act for the benefit of everybody. That is also a sacrifice. So even in this world, to do well in this world, we need to act. Many times we have to act for the benefit of everybody. That's how we make advancement, either in family relationship or in professional or any circle. And it is said that all these sacrifices are mainly mentioned for the person who is not engaged in the process of bhakti yoga. If somebody engaged in the process of bhakti yoga, you don't have to do all these sacrifices. These panchamaha yajnas are not required. If somebody is performing this sankirtana yajna, you don't have to do all these panchamaha yajnas. Just engaging in sankirtana yajna, because through panchamaha yajnas we are satisfying demigods, and the demigods acting according to the instructions of the Lord Vishnu, and then that's how Lord Vishnu becomes satisfied. But instead, we can directly, instead of this indirect path, we can directly do that. We can directly approach the Supreme Lord only by directly performing the Bhakti Yoga process, by performing Sankirtana Yajna, which is a prescribed method of performing sacrifice in this age. This Sankirtana Yajna means chanting the holy name of Krishna, chanting Krishna's name either loudly or no. Manasik, Vachak, Upamsa means Manasik means doing in the mind, or Vachak means just muttering. Upamsa means you chant the holy name of Krishna so that only you can hear, and Vachak means saying it loudly, like in a congregational chanting. So that is the easiest and most best way of performing sacrifice in this age of Kali. So when we perform this Sankirtana Yajna, then everything that we see, everything that we do in this material world is for our subsistence, but for our maintenance. So when we perform the Sankirtana Yajna as the goal of our life, then everything gets sanctified. Everything will be taken care nicely. We don't have to perform, we don't have to waste our time in any other process. And that's why Srila Prabhupada gave us chant minimum number of rounds and follow 4 regulatory principles so that we can be able to motivate it to continue in this path of bhakti and attain the ultimate perfection. Okay, we'll end it here. If anybody have any questions. Hare Krishna, anybody have any questions?
Prabhuji, so you are saying that once who offers everything to the Krishna, it is also applicable to the offering to the demigods. Am I correct?
Yeah, when you offer to Krishna, it is automatically. You don't have to separately worship demigods. You don't have to be concerned about all these sacrifices. It's automatically taken care.
But other way around, if you offer a demigod, even you should offer to Krishna.
Yeah, that is indirect, but it means like it is indirect way of pleasing Krishna. Why not we directly please Krishna?
But anyway, finally it goes to the Supreme
that is not very effective way of doing it.
Okay.
So because we may it is actually Krishna will reciprocate according to your desire. See, if you worship demigods, the demigods cannot give liberation. But if Krishna is satisfied with us, right, Krishna can give whatever we are seeking. We may sometimes look for some material comforts or material benedictions. Krishna can give that also, but Krishna can give what demigods cannot be able to give, which is liberation. Only Krishna can give liberation. No demigod cannot give liberation.
That means only material benefits will be
it is said that
granted by demigods.
Sorry?
Material benefits only granted by demigods.
Yeah, whatever benefits that are given by the demigods. So actually you can worship demigods to give Krishna Bhakti also. That's why Gopis and Vrindavana, they did Katyayani Vrata so that they can get Krishna as their husband. That is okay. Means you can worship demigods for the sake of Krishna Bhakti. But what is the necessity? You can worship directly Krishna only.
Directly, right? Krishna. Yes, bro. Thank you.
So, and also, whatever demigods can give, Krishna can give, and whatever demigods cannot give, also Krishna can give. Yeah, but we can worship demigods as the representatives of Krishna. That is also bona fide way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll end it here. If you have
just one question. One question. Can you hear me?
Who is this from?
Yeah, my name is Venkatesh. I just joined today.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I have a question. Like, do we have to undergo the consequences of all our sin, of all our karma? Like, is there a way to reduce the karma or like minimize the effect?
No, like as I said, just by performing Sankirtana Yajna, we can actually counteract all the karmic effects and attain the perfection. Initially it will minimize the effects of our karmic reactions upon us by chanting the holy name of Krishna. There are nice pastimes, the pastimes of Ajamila, the pastimes of Dhruva and everything, how they can attain the perfection just by chanting the holy name of Krishna, because that is a bona fide way of performing yajna in this age.
Okay, thank you.
These karmic effects, like not only in the Vedic, not only in the very far, like if you read the Journey Home book, there is a professor who was actually uh, unfortunately he gets connected to a bogus guru, means a tantric guru. Tantric guru means he performs black magic. So, and this person started blackmailing him. No, he started, no, if you don't surrender unto me, I will. No. This tantric guru, he wants to attain some. No, because this professor has a big role in the university, and he wants to do some through that professor. He wants to do some activity in the society, and this professor realized that he's a tantric, and so he doesn't want to be connected with him anymore. So he said, I cannot do anything, I cannot help him. Then this tantric guru becomes very angry. No, see, I have already accepted you as my disciple, so you cannot go back. If you go back, I will use my powers to destroy you. So, but still this professor, because of his, Manasakshi, means he was very much he doesn't want to commit any these heinous activities. So he doesn't entertain that tantric. So he starts sending all these evil forces. He loses his health, he loses his family, he loses his job and everything. And he finally takes sannyas. And still, even after taking sannyas, he was still harassing him. So then this person, this professor, he just took up chanting holy name of Krishna or Lord Ram's name. So, and he constantly chanting Lord Ram's name. So one time what happened, this professor, this tantric guru, he sends like they sometimes do black magic, right? Like that's some force that will send to destroy. So when he realized that he's under threat, he just constantly kept chanting this holy name of Krishna. So with like he kept chanting for like, because that powers are very sometimes very forceful, nobody can help them. So, but because this professor constantly kept chanting holy name of Ram, this evil force were not able to affect him, and they went back and they attacked the tantric himself, and tantric was dead. So there are like these experiences. We when a person starts chanting, like if you like, you can try also, it will actually, you just keep chanting regularly. You can only observe how much right now, how much contamination you have, how much anxieties you have. But if you can keep chanting regularly for over a period of time, you will be able to observe the change in your heart, in your attitude, in your lifestyle, how this mental anxieties went off, how my life, our lifestyle has changed so much because of this effect of chanting. So these karmic reactions are already there. We don't know how much severe and how much long that we have to suffer. No, that might be these karmic reactions are they themselves are bondage. Either it can be pleasurable experience or distressful experience. If you have pleasurable experience, you become conditioned to enjoy in this material world. If you have distressful experience, you're already in distressful condition. So both of them are distractions. So in order to save from both of them, we just have to engage in this Sankirtan Yajna. So as I said, these all rinas with the present lifestyle that we have, we cannot perform Pitru Yajna, we cannot perform Bhuta Yajna, we cannot perform Deva Yajna. So we cannot do all those things. All we can do is just chant holy name of Krishna, so that everything can be taken care nicely. So we not only by chanting holy name of Krishna, we not only performing all these 5 yajnas, but we are also able to attain liberation, become free from the karmic reactions or karmic struggles, effects of our karma, and then at the time of death, we can even go back to Godhead.
Yeah, I'm new to ISKCON. I just came to ISKCON temple one time. So I just started chanting like a month back. So do I just chant every day?
You can come and meet me. You can just a minute.
I'm sorry.
Just 1 minute.